Alright, as promised, Vixen's now here with Tech Minions. So we're going to do a little bit of conversation while we go to pick up food. Already touched on the fact of cops suck and trans lives matter, black lives matter, and kind of went through all the normal stuff in this day and age.
But blue lives don't matter.
Well, blue lives do matter as soon as they stop being blue.
Then there wouldn't be blue lives matter.
I know, that's the whole point. But anyway, the reason for that opinion, because I know people are going to be like, meh, Tech Minion, Vixen, but they do have to matter. They're people too. Okay.
They gave up to their claim to being people when they started to wear a badge and a gun and oppress the public.
Ah, yes, because here's the thing. Blue life is a job. That is the same way that you would say if you were to dictate that firefighters matter. And you don't hear any of them complaining about it, whether it would be yellow for their suits, whether it would be silver for those suits.
Oh, here's one. How about UPS lives matter?
Yeah.
Oh. You know, how about brown lives matter? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, what was that? Wasn't it that somebody had taken a UPS guy hostage and they filled the entire UPS truck with, what was it, 60 rounds?
Yeah.
Killing the poor UPS driver who was an innocent civilian in the whole damn thing because he got taken hostage.
Hashtag brown lives matter.
Yeah, so, again, the only people you hear complaining about any of this Blue Lives Matter stuff is the cops themselves and those who are affiliated with it, which, coming from a cop family, I can tell you that it doesn't mean shit once the family no longer has a cop in it. They don't care. The cops don't care who the hell you are. The only reason you have that immunity, if you're white, important caveat, is if your family member is a cop. And even then, it may not freaking matter depending upon the jurisdiction.
Or, you know, the cop happens to be gullible, pulls you over for a speeding ticket, you're a woman with a great rack. Yes, that does happen occasionally. But
then the problem is 50-50 depending upon the cop. They may sit there, and if you show them a little cleavage, they may go for the whole damn thing.
Yes.
So, you have a better chance at if your family member's a cop and they have enough pull. But, as what I call the only good episodes of Cops can vouch for, it is rather hilarious to watch a city council member who's white get pulled over with God knows what in the vehicle and they're drunk. I'm sorry, those are the only ones that I like.
They still get a slap on the wrist.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if they get arrested, it's like, okay, maybe go before the court and you'll get a slap on the wrist there.
Yeah.
You get community service for 2 days.
Yeah.
As opposed to how that would go down if the person was black, they'd get shot, or on the low end, arrested, thrown in jail for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Due process? Fuck due process. What's due process? We don't know what that is.
And as somebody who's been in jail can tell you this, your problems do not stop with when you get out of jail, even if you're not convicted of a crime. You are still charged for that time in jail.
Which means it goes on your record.
Yeah. Well, what I mean by that is you can be charged up to thousands of dollars for your stay in jail, because those people who say, well, jail's free. You get a 3 hot meals and a bed.
That's prison, not jail.
And you get charged for it either way. There's people who get out of prison who have a massive debt. There's people who get out of jail who have a massive debt. The only reason I personally dodged that bullet was because, number one, I was white. Number two, my charges were dropped. And everything came out hunky-dory. I dodged a freaking bullet. And that is personal experience. It was not fun.
Well, I haven't been to jail, but I have been sexually assaulted by cops. Many times.
Which, for any cop, whether it's a man or woman, the quote-unquote pat-down, shut up. Seriously, just shut the hell up. A pat-down is a nice legalese term for basically touching somebody's body all over in the worst places. Because if I remember correctly, during the pat-down, they're encouraged to feel around the breasts and the genitals, right?
Oh yeah, they give you proper pat-down classes, but no one adheres to those. They pat you down all over, they cop a feel of everything, and you're given no leeway, no respect. You're treated like a caged animal.
And that is even before you've actually been accused of the crime. That is when they're quote-unquote putting you into handcuffs. Now, for starters, we've both been handcuffed. And I can tell you, unless you're very, very limber, your hands are not going into anything. So they could check your back pockets and be done with it.
You may think that you're nimble enough to weasel your way out of the handcuffs. No, I'm sorry. Human bones don't react that way.
No.
And the metal actually encloses around your wrist to variable degrees. Once you're in the handcuffs, unless you're proficient at dislocating and relocating your shoulders, you're not getting out of the handcuffs.
Yep. And on top of that, for those of you that practice with your off-brand handcuffs, I'm going to, yes, make a shameless plug. The cops use Smith & Wesson brand handcuffs, which are not easy at all to get out of.
Then again, if you want to practice with Smith & Wesson handcuffs, they sell them at virtually every armory surplus store.
Yes. Now, the other thing, as somebody who has had to have a hacksaw used when a key was lost, right, Vixen? How easy are handcuffs to get out of if you lose the key?
They're not. They're designed to be impenetrable without a key. Now, this was an interesting scenario.
You don't have to go into detail.
Oh, it's okay.
Huh.
I was married at the time. My then wife and I were living together, and we had a third person joining us for a night of fun. It was actually my birthday night. And she put real handcuffs on me, not the cheapo six-door ones that we all get. These were actual police handcuffs. Which is
probably Smith & Wesson, like we talked
yes,
about? Yeah.
Which is stupid. You don't get real handcuffs for sex play. That's an entirely different matter, but I still had to say that. And she lost the key, and she blamed me for it, but that's another story entirely. So we tried a drill, a screwdriver, pliers, a hammer, a mallet, a hacksaw, a buzzsaw, a table saw.
Now, there is one thing that would have gotten it off, but nobody wants to try that close to their wrist, nor do they want to try that anywhere near in an apartment. A gun.
Yeah.
Yes, would a gun would have worked on handcuffs? Yeah. It's a bullet. It goes very fast. However,
very few people have that level of accuracy at close or medium range
without some bad stuff happening. But anyway, kind of not important. So, moving right along. Gonna do a couple more shameless plugs. Between
this broadcast brought to you by
I actually watched a couple things today, a combination of The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, where he talked to Jon Stewart about having police accountability, and I watched Legal Eagle of police accountability. Now, those are being used for references for the simple point of that one is a lawyer, the other two is somebody who ran the show that called people out from both sides, including the police, about mistakes that they were making that should be changed. Now, when everybody says that defunding the police is a good idea, as I explained in my first video earlier today before picking her up, this is what defund the police means, you asinine idiots, and I'm talking to those of you who say, well, defunding the police will mean nobody gets to do stuff. No, that is not what it means. What it means is you are going to have dedicated personnel who are trained in specific jobs.
Defunding the police means taking away their assault weapons and replacing them with more moderate tools of actual, law enforcement.
Yeah. as I believe you said the other day, a pad of paper and a pen or pencil.
Yeah.
And I would also argue to include on there a body cam on 24/7, like both of the two ones I referenced earlier said. They can physically not turn them off. You are basically a taxi driver that enforces the law.
How about when you go on duty, the camera goes on, and when you go off duty, it goes off? And nothing in between.
Beginning of shift, camera on, end of shift, off. Because, dear God, if you bend over to where we can see you pissing, or we can see you taking a shit, number one, dear God, what the hell are you doing? First off. And number two, the people who are going to go through it have probably seen everything else under the sun. They have seen police officers handle somebody covered in shit. They've seen people spitting, spraying blood all over everything. These are people who go through cameras on a regular basis. And then they will weed that out so the public won't have to see your specialized personal things unless it is relevant to the situation of a crime you're being accused of.
What would also be handy is if they gave cops classes and training in crisis response situations. Instead of weapons, you equip them with tools a psychiatrist uses.
Well, they already have one of those, but they don't really get brought out very much because I believe it costs, quote-unquote, a lot of money to train a hostage negotiator.
Gee, it sounds like they should put some money that they use for weapons into crisis counseling and negotiation.
Yeah, because, seriously, an MRAP is as tall as a lifted truck. It is designed to withstand IEDs.
There is no reason why any police department needs military weapons.
I've got an alarm that goes off on the truck every so often, for those of you who are wondering what that was. Anyway.
No one cares, Jeff.
Yeah. So. No, they may have. So. Again, you do not need a fully automatic M16 assault rifle on a day-to-day basis.
And I know some of you are out there like, well, what about the cops in East LA and Detroit and Chicago?
Call the SWAT team! For fuck's sake! Call the SWAT team! If it accelerates to that point, your random Joe Schmo cop who hands out tickets on a day-to-day basis does not need to have a fully automatic assault rifle.
In situations like that, you analyze the situation, get back in your car, drive to a safer area, call the SWAT team in, and let them handle it while you go to, I don't know, the Dunkin' Donut shop.
I would also argue, trade in your assault weapons for better armored cars. Because seriously, if you're getting shot at and there's bullets whizzing through your car, your most important thing should not be returning fire. Your most important thing should be getting the hell out of the situation so you can report back. I mean, unless I'm wrong.
No, not really.
I mean, military tactics are to provide suppressing fire so your buddies can get out of there. Usually, in general, it's 1 or 2 cars at most who will roll up on these situations. And when they are not designed to take that level of punishment, you now have downed people who are then going to have to be rescued by other more heavily armed people, as was shown in the North Hollywood shootout. To use as a perfect example of, oh dear God, why you would need SWAT teams with high firepower.
You also don't need attack choppers. Those are ridiculous.
Who has attack choppers?
Cleveland PD.
They have an Apache?
They have a converted Huey.
Oh, they've got the Vietnam conversion, don't they?
Yeah. It was just the predecessor of the Apache.
Okay, so, for those of you who do not understand what a converted Huey is, I'm pulling up to grab food, so Vixen will explain it to you since she is the military historian. And she, well, kind of knows that shit.
Basically, at the height of the Vietnam War, people used, or when I say people, I mean the military, decided it'd be a good idea to experiment with helicopter gunships. The very first of these was an abysmal failure. However, the second iteration, known as a Huey gunship, was actually reasonably successful. Future generations of attack choppers were built on the Huey design. They served throughout most of the Vietnam conflict, the remainder until we pulled out just before the fall of Saigon, and future generations were subsequently built in that chassis. Basically, the Huey gunship consists of a stripped-down civilian chopper refitted with some light, very light armor plating around the main fuselage, but it's largely plexiglass. Although the later versions would actually have true armor plating. About medium width, I'd say around 3.5 centimeters. And carried upwards of 2 door guns. Space for a small contingent of troops. And some variants carried as much as 2 to 3 rocket pods, or maybe 2 missiles. Now, mind you, back in the 60s, this was, these were dumbfire rockets, and very, very poorly guided missiles, but the point remains. There is no reason these vehicles have any purpose in a civilian police department. At all. Right. We got food. Pizza night.
Alright, so where were we?
I was finishing up describing the loadout and history of the Huey.
Now, a question, since we're in Cleveland discussing Cleveland PD. Does Cleveland go so far as to just have 2 machine guns on it? Or have they gone full-on Rocketeer level?
Well, they haven't gone to that extent. Largely, they're content with putting like a half dozen troops, officers, on the Huey and using it as a military transport chopper. But in intense situations where, well, how do they put it? Excessive or accelerated conflict resolution is needed. They use enhanced combat techniques, which means basically slapping a couple high-velocity, multi-barrel Gatling guns on the sides.
So what? They basically take 2 Vulcan miniguns?
Yeah.
Why? Why is that even needed?
For enhanced crowd suppression.
Aren't
But they
the
put
Vulcans 20mm or do they use 7.62?
20mm cannons.
So you're using 20mm cannons against crowds.
Oh, but we shouldn't worry. They're using non-lethal ammunition.
Okay, so first off, for those of you who have seen what non-lethal ammunition can do, you know that that's utter horse shit. Rubber bullets are fired as fast as regular, right?
Mm-hmm. There's
And
no substitution or change or amendment in the firing process.
it just exchanges hard rubber instead of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Which can cause the following. And I believe a Vulcan minigun fires faster than your standard rifle, correct?
Oh, it's insanely fast.
So you're basically dealing with, let's see, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Warthog is 30mm, right?
Yes, it's a tank killer.
Okay, so You're dealing with a 20 millimeter gun, which, as anybody who has watched, let's use an example of for those of you who have watched something that's not the military stuff. For those of you who have watched Mythbusters, you have seen what a 20 millimeter gun can do. It destroys things utterly.
Which is what it was designed to do.
Mm-hmm. It is a weapon of war for the military that not even Joe Sixpack could get a hold of. And mind you, Joe Sixpack can get a hold of some pretty terrifying things. Because nobody needs a Barrett. Seriously, no one. I don't care who you are. For those cops who say, oh, but I need to protect myself. Okay. If you're doing your job right, completely right, you should never have to pull your weapon. Ever. It doesn't matter how much of a dangerous position you go into, you should never have to pull your weapon. You should hold yourself to the same standards as an unarmed security guard, of which one of us is now, and the other used to be.
Basically, going back to the subject, the damage inflicted by non-lethal rounds, like rubber bullets, includes lacerations, contusions, broken bones, damaged internal organs, such as ripped and shredded kidneys.
I believe one reporter who got shot with it lost complete sight in her eye.
Her eye was completely destroyed.
Mm-hmm. And that's just talking about rubber bullets. Yeah. We haven't even touched on pepper balls, sting ball grenades, or the wonderful, wonderful thing known as tear gas.
Which is actually outlawed for use by the Geneva Conventions in warfare.
And I believe America and Russia are the only two that really use it, of the quote-unquote first world countries, right?
Yep, and they use it exclusively to terrorize their own citizens.
Now, touching on the subject of tear gas, anybody who has been in the military, at least from what I remember from the Navy basic training week 3, you get to experience it. And dear God, no one ever wants to have to experience it. Nor do they want to have to experience pepper spray or bear mace. Because sadly, there's not much difference in the pain when it comes to bear mace.
No, I used to carry a whole bottle of it around as a rape prevention tool. It was very effective.
Mm-hmm. So again, cops saying that they're being oppressed and they're being put upon and hurt. Y'all kind of earned that from being a bunch of dumbasses and the rest of you for being complacent. Solve the problem of the bad apples by getting rid of them completely. Banned from ever serving as a police officer again, and stop protecting those who should not be members of it because of how bad their fuck-ups are.
Okay, we are home and we have food, so it's time for us to say goodbye.
Yep. We'll see y'all again. Probably may do one in the morning. Who knows? Laters!